One of the first things we might notice as we approach unshakable well-being is the emergence of a perspective called witness consciousness, or just the witness. What is witness consciousness? Prior to developing witness consciousness, we experience our beliefs, thoughts, and emotions as if they are us. We are almost always completely merged with them. But when we begin to develop witness consciousness, we mentally zoom out a little bit and begin to see concepts and beliefs from the perspective of our awareness. It is at this point that we begin to identify with our awareness rather than any of the experiences that our awareness observes. For a while, we will likely teeter-totter between feeling like we are having our experiences and feeling like we are just watching them. Think of it like this. You know when you're watching a movie and you get so sucked in that you forget yourself? You're not paying any attention to the room that you're watching the movie from. Then the scene ends and you zoom back out. You are again both observing the room that you're in and the movie that's playing. It's kind of like that. For your entire life, you were completely merged with or sucked into the movie of life. And now you zoom out from your life just a bit and realize, oh, I don't have to be so invested in my experiences. I can watch my life without always having to react to it. The first thing we usually notice with our witness consciousness is our thought stream. Although we likely learned to identify some of our thoughts earlier in development, now that we are viewing our experiences from the perspective of the witness consciousness, we can see our thoughts much more clearly. We begin to watch the completely outrageous thoughts that are constantly running through our minds. Eventually, we'll conclude that we are not our minds. How can we be? We now watch thoughts just come and go without any ability to stop or change them. As we continue to observe the parades of thoughts, we'll likely notice the loudest thoughts first. Depending on our unique minds, we may notice a loud inner critic, a loud inner anger, a loud inner control freak, or a variety of other thought voices. Some of these inner voices may egg each other on, while other voices argue with each other. Once we have really spent some time witnessing these loud thoughts and giving them our full attention, they actually quiet down, and some of them go away completely. At this point, we'll begin to notice quieter thoughts that we may have never noticed before. For example, we may notice the mind's tendency to rehearse what it's going to say, a process known as mental rehearsal. The mind may even repeat the same sentences or phrases over and over again just to hear how it sounds. Although these quiet thoughts are often less distressing than the loud thoughts, it's pretty weird when we start to see the mess that lives in our heads. Let's now talk about witnessing emotions. For many of us, it's more distressing to witness emotions than to witness thoughts. Even as our witness consciousness develops, we may still find ourselves completely immersed in emotional experiences, especially if an emotion is strong. It's just like watching an intense movie. We get most sucked in during the intense emotional scenes. Once the emotion has exhausted itself, our witness consciousness will come back online. In other words, we'll zoom out a bit. At this point, it can be helpful to reflect on what happened or journal about the emotions we just experienced. Even though we didn't use our witness consciousness in the moment, we can still use our memory to bring attention to the emotions so that they can begin to resolve themselves. Our loudest emotions will usually be those that trigger one of our childhood emotional wounds. For example, maybe someone we care about just gave us negative feedback about something we did, and it triggers feelings of inadequacy. At this point, the emotions may still flare up as normal, but once they have settled down and zoomed back out, we can use our memory to recall how we got sucked into them in the first place. These situations offer us an excellent opportunity to see our emotions more clearly. And they just need to be seen to begin to release their grasp on us. For example, in this situation, we might ask ourselves why we got so upset. Do we really care about the negative feedback? Or did this situation actually remind us of something painful from our past? Once we find the real wound, we can acknowledge and experience it and finally resolve it. Once we resolve the louder emotions, our witness consciousness will be able to observe quieter emotions. For example, we can begin to observe the subtle dis-ease that the body carries as a constant protection mechanism. We can notice the uncomfortable sensations that give rise to striving, desire, and even dislike. We can even notice the icky feeling that goes along with our judgments of others. In a way, we'll likely feel better because most of the loud emotions that rumbled throughout our lives rarely come up anymore. However, because our witness consciousness is getting quite strong by this point, subtle emotions can still be quite painful. The witness consciousness forces us to acknowledge everything and feel it fully, which can be a pretty intense experience. Now let's talk about beliefs. Beliefs are probably the most difficult thing to observe with our witness consciousness. The loudest beliefs are the ones that just about anyone can see. For example, maybe we believe in God or that our favorite sports team will win the match. Other loud beliefs are not so easy to see. For example, most people believe that they're not good enough, that they're not worthy, or that there is something fundamentally wrong with them. Even though these are extremely common and loud beliefs, many people don't know that they hold these beliefs. Although it can be painful, the more you witness these beliefs, the less convincing they become. After we have seen that many of our loud beliefs are just nonsense, we are good enough just as we are, we begin to embody this knowing. We not only resolve our belief that we weren't good enough, we actually feel good enough and begin to act based on that feeling. Without these loud beliefs clouding our minds, we can begin to witness more and more subtle beliefs. At this point, we begin to witness ourselves having beliefs about the very nature of our being. For example, we might notice the beliefs that make our society operate in a particular way. Or we may notice the beliefs that lead to fundamental behaviors like eating, going to work, or communicating with others. All of this witnessing eventually leads us to see through a key belief that creates our experiences, the belief that we are a separate self. In conclusion, witness consciousness is a key perspective that emerges on the path towards unshakable well-being. As our awareness gains strength, it becomes a permanent feature of experience. This perspective is what helps us see through all of our remaining hang-ups and suffering. Although we're moving forward, this experience is not generally easy. We weren't previously aware of just how much pain we were in. But when we finally acknowledge and accept all of our experiences, they finally resolve themselves. And this is what is required to continue our path towards unshakable well-being. If you're a coach, consultant, or well-being entrepreneur, grab free science-based content to grow your business by clicking the ebook link in the description below.